Hey everyone, Sleepy Reader here with another of my daily videos. Well, I'm doing a pretty good job so far. This one is the one where I try to start a tag, and I want to call it the Reboot the Bat tag. And it's kind of a fantasy tag, or your fantasy if you had total control over the DC universe and it was time to reboot Batman, start him over. How would you do Batman? How would you want Batman presented? Because there are so many Batman versions. I don't even know who Batman is in the Tom King yet. Perhaps eventually I will come to understand what Tom King's Batman is. We had an interesting sequence in the last arc where we see Batman confess a moment of moral weakness. And we have a kind of out of control Batman in this apparently Elseworlds Batman called Batman White Knight, where the Joker, Jack Napier, becomes good. But that's all we know so far. We've got Elmer Fudd Batman. I mean, these are just the ones I picked up, near the surface of my comic book collection recently. It could just go on and on, all the different. In this Batman in particular, we have a whole mythos of the Dark Knight that comes before Batman that involves Alfred of the knight who stands alone. But Alfred's not going to let him stand alone. But that was what Alfred himself was supposed to be. In this Batman Detective Comics, we have a Batman who, in his years of training, went to learn at the side of Zatanna to learn about magic, and had a romantic relationship with Zatanna. So there's an endless kind of past to Batman. Of course, we have the Dark Knight Batman, for whatever that is about. We have my favorite, the brilliant Year One, Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli, rebooting of Batman here. It always felt like a reboot that was because they rebooted it, but then we were back to kind of the regular Batman many years later. There wasn't a logical flow here, although obviously this Batman has a huge influence on all the writers and their takes on Batman, although I feel like we keep moving further and further away from that. Because everyone wants Batman to be this mythic hero. They love Batman and they want the world to love Batman. I think that's one thing I like about Frank Miller's Batman is he's not lovable. This idea of the tag relates loosely to a video that Silver Planet did a while ago. So ever since seeing that video by Silver Planet, where he talks about his problems with Batman and moral absolutism and things like that, I just thought about how would I like to do Batman. So that it's just a fantasy of if I were in control, this is what Batman would be. So if I were stripping Batman back down, he would truly be this bizarre creature of the night that, I mean, in most Batman stories we know, everyone knows Batman exists. In Gotham, the criminals, the police. But I would have it that most people aren't sure if Batman exists or not. He doesn't work with other people. He doesn't sit around and chat with Commissioner Gordon. He might have brief moments of in the shadows. Commissioner Gordon believes he's real and knows he's real, but doesn't really tell anyone else. And so it is the criminals continue with their criminal behavior because they don't believe there's a Batman out there. I mean, if there were really someone like Batman in Gotham, there really would be very little crime. So someone like the Batman that we're usually presented in modern comics, this ultra competent guy who can do anything and stop any criminal, it would be great. That's a lovely fantasy, but I want a working Batman in a crime-ridden city that I believe in as a crime-ridden city. So he's just working in the shadows. He can't easily solve problems. He solves crimes here or there. The criminals hear about it. A few of them have seen something or been beaten up or whatever, but no one knows what's real. And I want it to stay that way. It's maybe a few more people over time will know a little more about Batman. I think if you have a Robin at all, he should be that sort of Robin who figures out that Batman exists and wants to work with him, but most of the time Batman won't work with him, not his ward who's in on all his secrets. And I want an Alfred who is not this superhero himself, but more of a regular guy who's being sucked into Bruce Wayne's insanity. And I do want it. I want it to remain on the edge of sanity, and I would have it that that Batman is often on the edge of killing criminals, and there's suspense of whether he will do it or not. But he won't, or almost always won't. Maybe there will be times. Part of the ridiculousness of some of the recent stories about the Joker is he is so pure evil that any logical person would conclude a few times after he's escaped from Arkham Asylum that the only moral thing to do would be to kill him, right? Like most of us who are generally against murder would want to kill Adolf Hitler and that kind of thing. Anyway, that's how I feel when I read Batman. So I want him on the edge all the time. I want him to be very secretive. I want him to... Another thing I really don't like is in most modern Batman, Bruce Wayne is an admired citizen of society. I want him to just be viewed by society as go back to that Zorro kind of thing, a playboy, a corporate hawk, or whatever you will, devouring other companies, not this sympathetic philanthropist. I want all of Batman's philanthropy done secretly. In fact, he is so obsessed, he has mastered the high corporate finance and management and all of that to a degree that he has two empires. One is a secret empire that no one knows that Bruce Wayne owns, and those are the funds he uses for Batman. And he uses those funds in all kinds of different ways, both to make his equipment, to try to shape society secretly from that secret corporation. That's where I want his brilliance to go. I don't want him to so easily stop criminals. I want things that he does to fail, like, say, some of his secret philanthropy to go wrong. And so I want my Batman is way more underground. And this is how I would reboot Batman. I think the power of Batman is kind of the loner. And the power of Batman is the fantasy of what you would do with a lot of money. How would you react? I think a lot of us, if we had a lot of money, would want to use the power of money to do something good. But how do you do that? How do you take your money and do something good? And this is the way Batman chooses. And so, yeah, shadowy loner. I think that's his basic appeal. And I guess because of all the Robins there have been, and Batgirl and Batwoman and all that, there's this urge towards the Bat family and everything. But I want the Bat family to be fatherless. They may want Batman as their father, but he really does not want to be their father. He is not interested in that whatsoever. Yeah, and if he had a relationship with Catwoman, it would be totally effed up. It wouldn't be this reasonable thing where they're sitting around talking about their past and stuff the way they are currently in Batman. They would have these encounters, and it would be a terrible mess, and they would move on from each other, and they wouldn't know who each other are. It would be really hard to find out who Batman is. It would not be obvious. So, yeah, that's how that would be my baseline Batman, and I would build up slowly the world of Gotham around that. Um, and it would not be a mystery that is solved who is Batman, and it would not be, um, and it would never be clear to the larger populace that Batman is good. And maybe Batman teams up with Superman and the Flash and all of those guys in the Justice League. But even then, he's very secretive, and they don't know that much about him. Obviously, Superman is going to be able to tell more than everyone else. And they're a little nervous about his sanity, although he's nervous about their sanity. I mean, I would really play that psychological angle up. So anyway, what would be, if you care to, if you have any interest in your Bat reboot, what would be your Bat? Where would you start the Bat from? Where would you want to take him to? Um, I would I would have him very, very rarely involved with any kind of big sci-fi story. Um, his criminals are not these omnipotent super killer machines who are unstoppable. There would not be a Gotham apocalypses. There would be much smaller stories. And I would go more into the world, the psychology of the criminals. I do like in the recent Tom King books the way he's going into a little bit into the life of the Kite Man and stuff. Um, so there would be a lot more, a lot less from Batman's point of view, and there would never be that narration where you get Batman's thoughts. Um, you would get other people's impressions, fleeting impressions of Batman. And I would stick with that, and I would keep Batman's world small. So, anyway, I feel like I've probably repeated myself a couple times here. You get the general idea. I'll probably think of other things I should have said later, and maybe I will say them later. But in particular, I would love, if they want to know what Joshua Hayes's his ideal, if he had the power. Josh, if you had the power to reboot Batman, exactly how would you do that? And Luke, Batman video reviews, or whatever your channel is now, Gotham Central. Sorry, Luke, Gotham Central. How would you reboot Batman? And anyone else out there who's a big Batman fan, or who would just enjoy Batman being done a little differently, how would you reset Batman? Okay, have a good night, everyone. I will talk to you again tomorrow.